I'm meant to integrate into Russia. And my brain just does not work like a Russian. It doesn't. We're all just still clapping like we're supposed to be clapping, right? He's our guy, right? Even a phone call, you're just like, I don't know if I even want to pick it up. It could turn into some nightmare, and I won't even know what they're saying. You must change the name of the master tracking sheet because this is racist. Because it's implying slavery.
I hope you don't mind that our cameras are black.
No. It's very extraordinarily racist of you. This is how it goes. This is Russian business. Duck, jump, okay, yep, and go around, take a shortcut, like this.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks now.
Hello, dear friends. This is Dynamic Spectrum Talks podcast, a place where we explore different cultures together with interesting people. We look for new horizons of mutual understanding, as well as invisible threads that unite us. We are trying to break down the artificial barriers that divide people and find common values that help us to get closer to each other. I am Shafran, and this is my colleague, Yuri. Lindre.
Hello, everyone.
Today, we often hear stories of people who intentionally move from Western countries to Russia, not because of work or just by accident, but because they understand that this is the place with people who share traditional values as they do. Our country is seen as an alternative, an opportunity to look at the world from a different angle and try to live differently. We will talk about this with our guest, a person who not only went through this journey himself, but also gave the world to other foreigners, recording their experiences, impressions, and discoveries. We are pleased to welcome in our studio a blogger and IT specialist, Josef Shutzman. A lot of Russians, as we know you, dear Joseph, and it's great.
And now we know you too.
Yes, glad to see you. So thank you very much for finding times to take part at our program.
Спасибо огромное. It's a real honor to be here with you, and I love that your introduction is such a beautiful mission and a very important one, and I'm very grateful to be here with you
we
today.
We try to do our best.
Yes.
Молодец.
Joseph, let me start with asking you the most obvious question. It's about Russia, our country, how this title, this name, and this land appeared in your life, because lots of guests that we are meeting here in our studio, as already Anna said, visiting us or moving to Russia due to different reasons and due to different path of life. Please tell us more about your personal story.
Certainly. So I think I can very cleanly state that my primary reason for moving to Russia was for my children. When I was growing up, my father saw in a sense, what the future was coming, how we were developing and growing faster and faster in the wrong direction in America. That family values are being attacked slowly but surely, step by step. This LGBT ideology was beginning to grow like wildfire. What you were able to say at work, what were you able to say in public, what were you able even to say at home, even with guests coming over and speaking in your own home became gradually restricted, what you could say against these ideologies that are destructive to society. And he used to tell me when I was a boy, he said, look, I don't know how you will survive when you get older. This is not a very encouraging message to receive at 7 years old, but my father was a very thoughtful person, and he wanted to prepare me for what was going to be. And so I joined the workforce. I worked for Microsoft. I worked for Sprint, Oracle, most recently Red Hat before I left America. And I began to see it. Even throughout my entire career, even at Red Hat, I'll give you a perfect example. I created a spreadsheet that was to be tracking our projects, and I called it the master tracking sheet. I got a call after I had presented this spreadsheet and then said, you must change the name of the master tracking sheet because this is a racist, because it's implying slavery. So we're just deleting words out of our English language even. I mean, it's just a level of stupidity, right? You offend people without even thinking about it. So for myself, my father, he himself thought about moving to other countries at the
Sorry,
time.
Joseph, for interrupting you.
Of course.
I hope you don't mind that our cameras are black.
No. It's very extraordinarily racist of you.
Sorry.
I don't see any white cameras. Oh well. C'est la vie. No, it's funny, right? But actually, the reality is that you live in this. You have to joke about these things. We joked about these things when we were living in America. There are many good Americans that are still left in America, but sadly, our government continues to press us down. And this is actually the problem. And you don't realize this level of oppression and this burden that comes upon you. Look, I came to Russia with 6 children,
Something which is not a common story, I assume, for the West and for the United States. 6 children is
It's a healthy number, yes. Yet it's still we consider ourselves to be more of a middle-sized family. I'm the oldest of 12. My wife is
12?
number 4.
Fantastic.
Yes, blessed be God. It was wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to come from a large family. My grandmother, she has over 150 grandchildren. So
Great.
This is how it goes.
Big respect. Really.
To them, absolutely. Yes. So we're just trying to keep up. But the point is that the world has just radically changed, and America is not what you certainly see on Hollywood. It's certainly not what you see on the TV. At least American TV, I guess you would say. This is sadly not the America even that I grew up in, which my father already saw was coming this way. So when COVID happened, I think we got to see kind of the worst side of every people, of every country, because of the level of pressure, right? So there's a horrible pressure that's being put on the entire world, and now you get to see how people truly act and how people truly are. And I think everybody experienced those negative pieces. What I saw in Americans, I did not like, because all of this ideology really floated to the top, and people became very radical in their positions. And I got to see, wow, we are actually a despised people in our own country. In 2023, when we had already decided that we were going to move to Russia, the federal government, we found out the FBI put traditional Catholics, of which I'm one, on the domestic terrorist watch list. We have all the papers and the proof from the FBI. You can search them. Anybody can search them themselves on the American internet.
So you're a potential terrorist.
Very potentially, and I have many little terrorists.
Because you have a lot of children.
Yes, exactly.
Something that unusual. If it doesn't match to reality, it means there is something wrong with you.
Exactly. Gremlins. They're very dangerous gremlins, yeah. So we actually began to look. I think that you might find this a little bit funny, but we went to a very popular LGBT website that ranks countries on how against these countries are or how pro they are. So we're like, okay, who has the lowest score? Okay, well, it's some places in Africa, not a good place. Okay, not a good place for us either. China, okay, still kind of there, but we saw some places in South America that were like, oh, Paraguay, maybe the sentiment is like this. But Russia, wow, this has a very, very low score. It's a very low score to this ideology and support of this ideology. So he said, well, we've been taught all of our lives that Americans and our media and our movies and whatnot, that we should hate this country, that this is a dark, evil country. And we said, wow, we don't believe our government on a full list of things. Why should we believe the same thing about what they say about Russia? And so I came and visited in February of 2023. And I thought I would need about 7 days to really understand if this was a good place for my family. In fact, I really believe that I needed only 24 hours because I immediately fell in love with your country. I went, maybe it's a little bit cliche, but I went to St. Basil's Cathedral because, of course, every tourist must go to Red Square. But I'd never been inside of an Orthodox church before. And I walked into St. Basil's Cathedral and, my God, I began to cry, to see, wow, this separation, this beauty that still is on this side of the world in the East. And I felt a tremendous movement in my soul in this. I am a traditional Catholic. Everybody knows that I'm a traditional Catholic, and I'm very proud of my faith. But I believe that we are both Christian religions that worship the same God. And to see this beauty that you have here in the East is something that truly touches my soul and the souls of my children. So we're very grateful to be here.
Joseph, this is very impressive what you've been telling us and to the audience. But let me ask you maybe one tricky question.
Sure.
Look, you mentioned your former career at top IT companies like Microsoft, Oracle, and other stuff. We know that you have in the United States Silicon Valley or special districts where a lot of people from the world are dreaming to come to work. I mean, your career path was very predictable. You were almost on the top of the pyramid because it was something that millions of people are chasing at their lives in from India, from Africa, Latin America, even China, because you were dreaming almost like a best life that a lot of people are dreaming about.
Well, I think there's two parts to this question, and I'm very glad that you asked this question because I go to IT conferences and I speak with, Russian developers, young guys who are they have their dreams, they want to be great, they want to develop great things for their country, they want to see, places like Silicon Valley. And, well, I've been there. And, when you have something, right, you don't have as much of an appreciation for it. I tell this about Russians all the time, about you don't have as good of an appreciation for what you have in your own country. Maybe it's not beautiful buildings and, there's such, like this IT building, modern city, vibe, right? Maybe it's not so impressive in Moscow as it is in Silicon Valley from the IT perspective, that we've built this very artificial world vibe that you get when you walk into Silicon Valley. And they're like, we would just, to love to go there. Look, I will say this, I will always say it, that Americans, one thing that we do very, very well is marketing. We can create worlds out of nothing. We can create ideas, we can make businesses, we can sell businesses. There's nothing there.
You mean you can sell ice to the Eskimos without...
In this case, this is really the easiest because actually the ice is real. You can touch it, yeah? So at least there's a product there, even if it's under your feet. But no, this is true. And we're very good at that, and that's not something to be ashamed of necessarily. It's a good talent
it's a superpower.
To have.
Why not
it's
to
a
use
super,
it, of course.
Right. But people should realize what is actually not there. We have people with huge budgets, companies with huge budgets that waste so much money on all of these extra things. And really, it's all part of everybody's marketing budget to show the rest of the world that we're on top of it. Trump is talking about investing hundreds of billions of dollars in AI data centers, and we're going to have the best chips in the world, and they're going to be big. You're going to be able to have massive data centers. No, come on. This is a lot of marketing. I'm not saying everything is fake, but what I admire about Russia is that you have people especially now in this situation that we're in the world right now, where Russia is being pushed out and Russia is also at the same time trying to protect itself, that you still have people that have very genius minds. In America, we have a tremendous respect still in companies that had Russian developers. We love them. We recognize, wow, these guys, really smart guys, really work very hard, and they were just genius. At Red Hat, I'll give you a perfect example. After the COVID situation and the SMO had begun, Red Hat fired all their Russian developers. There was like a revolution that happened inside of the company. They were just angry. How could you do this to our Russian colleagues like this? So, in fact, we do have a recognition of these things. And I would encourage that young developers, especially people who are in the IT, sphere and want this kind of thing, build it here themselves in Russia. You have the capacity to do this sort of thing. Fine, if you want to go visit it, go see it for what it is. It's nice, it's shiny, but what is really behind there? And this is when you're under pressure. This is where the most inventions come from. This is where the most expansion of thought can come in when you're under pressure. So this is what I would say to these people.
Well, it's thank you for the profound explanation. Now we understand better that it's not about the living dream life. It's more about proper marketing.
Yes, absolutely. And I absolutely will never discourage Russia from improving its marketing. I think we all would benefit by this.
It should be balanced. We all know. Okay, Joseph, let me also...
Let me ask the question, please. Joseph, you are the father of 7 children. It must have been very difficult for you to move to Russia with such a big family. Do your children feel comfortable here in Russia? And we understand that they need to go to school and to communicate with other children. And it's quite problematic with the language barriers, isn't it?
Well, there's a lot of material there. First, I should make a clarification, and it's completely understandable. But we now have 8 children.
8.
But we came with 6.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Slava Bogu. Slava Bogu. So we're very grateful to have all of them here. But now we have 2 Russian-born children, Misha and Anastasia. They both they're the 2 only children in the family that have, patronymic names. So Josefovich, Josefovna, and
Anastasia Josefovna и Mikhail Josefovich.
Да. I'm still working on being able to say this.
But it sounds natural, so... I don't
really.
I don't hear any...
Anastasia Josefovna Shutzman. Why not?
Иосифовна даже скорее.
Иосифовна, да.
Иосифовна.
Yes, in Russian language it will be Iosif. Iosifovna, да.
Iosif.
Anastasia Iosifovna Shutzman.
Sounds natural.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to live with the Josefovich part forever because of how that was translated in my visa. But anyways, no. Look, we came with 6. I won't exaggerate. I don't think by saying that it was extraordinarily difficult. We sold absolutely everything we owned. We sold our house. We sold our possessions, our antiques. Heirlooms, things that I will never be able to replace. And we just came with our most precious items and a few clothes in 10 suitcases. With 6 children on a plane, it was very, very difficult. In fact, it's a very good motivation never to think about returning. I was like, I never want to do that again in my life.
You're very brave, man.
I've been called many things, but stupid is also another one. Maybe crazy is another one. But anyways, we're here and we're very grateful for it. No, our children, I'm very grateful for this home that we found. It's not always easy. In fact, it can be very, very difficult, especially with the language barrier. You feel that even very, very, very simple, basic things that you should be able to do yourself, you must ask a friend, you must struggle, you must work on the language and studying the language. Even a phone call, you're just like, I don't know if I even want to pick it up. It could turn into some nightmare, and I won't even know what they're saying. But we've made it through, I think, and things are definitely getting better now, and we can understand the language better. Our children are studying right now at home. We have a Nanya who comes to them and teaches them Russian. My eldest, Florina, who loves this country very much. She is desperate to speak with everybody. She wants to share all of her knowledge, all of it, with the rest of the world, but she also is eager to learn.
How old is she?
She's 9 now. So when she came, she was only 6. She was only 6, and she was just a little girl. We actually filmed a little video in Red Square. And maybe I will send it to you after the show, but you should see the brightness in their eyes when we walked into Red Square, and we just said we were here. And somebody published this on the internet, but I love watching this video because it was really a moment, a feeling of freedom when we came here, because it was not this oppressiveness. There was so much beauty around us to see all the architecture. We don't have architecture like a country that has 1,000 years plus of history. We don't have this kind of architecture that we find appealing. But when we walked into Red Square and saw this, we were just, this is amazing. We're so blessed to be here.
But your current occupation is still IT. So you continue to work as IT specialist.
Yeah, well, I left my job at Red Hat, and then I came here. And I was in fact offered a remote job in America 2 weeks after I got here, the most money I was ever offered for a job. And they just said, well, okay, perfect, you have the job. 2 weeks after I got here, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And they just said, you just need to come in for a blood test. I'm like, it's a remote job. It's a white-collar job. I need to come in for a blood test. I guess I won't be taking this job, so I had to turn this job down. So we went into the winter, and then I started looking for a job in February. I learned very much that you need to learn how to network. We've lost this art also in America. Networking is very important here, especially for jobs. And then I got a job at a Russian IT firm as the director of IT transformation for them. So that was my first experience in Russian business. And I assure you, it is very, very different than American business. There are some familiarity. There's some terms, tools, and concepts.
You mean business culture?
Yes. No, it was something that was very, I guess, shocking in some ways. It's, I would say some good ways and some not so good ways. This is an interesting point. In fact, kind of the management. I think people are still learning about management. I go into Russian business and I see terms that I'm familiar with. Oh, you should have KPIs. You should have this kind of report. We should have, we should be tracking this sort of thing. And I said, okay, this is all right. So they do business the same way we do. No, it's
you have refused from KPIs, right?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm sorry.
I mean, you abandoned KPIs, so you don't work with KPIs anymore.
A lot of people are moving away from that. There's a lot of businesses. But
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a gap in 20 years.
Yes, a little bit. It's a little bit. It's like already we're moving away from these concepts, and Russia, it seems, has been doing these concepts for some time when the Western companies were here. But in fact, I think that it's important for Russian companies to start thinking about the basic mechanics of what they're doing. Business culture should be somehow related to your own culture. It should not be related to somebody else's culture. And in business culture terms, American business culture doesn't work in Russia. It just doesn't.
Because it doesn't match with our internal culture.
Absolutely. Okay, yes, we will follow everything American business culture, but, we're also going to be off for a third of the year, take vacation. It doesn't work like that. Everybody in Russia, it's like, okay, y'all take your vacation very, very seriously. You take your days off very, very seriously. I mean, religiously. This is not at all American culture. We are supposed to work from the moment we start. We should work for 40 years without stopping. Vacation? What's vacation? I should still be messaging my boss on vacation. You don't do that here. I mean, generally speaking, right? You message somebody on their vacation? Please. He is in the Maldives. Don't bother him. It's not allowed. But it's an emergency. We'll deal with it when he comes back. The building is burning down, but he is on vacation. So it doesn't work together. And I think that Russians should, especially these companies that are very embedded with Western business culture, should think about making some different decisions and develop a Russian business culture that's more effective. I think is something
Very,
very
very
helpful.
clever and simple at the same moment thought. But I can't understand why this simple thought is so difficult for a lot of people in Russia
Yeah, it's
who are doing business.
it's like if you go to the garage and start to repair old car. If you put a new engine, but the car will be, let's say, old school, it won't work anymore. So it should be, every single tool must, it's an obligation that much nicely in order to the final, product to work well. If logic is different, but you install some things that are not natural for particular environment,
Yes.
you will rotten all the job. It's better just to leave it as it was, or start everything from scratch and build everything from zero, but using the new basement,
It's true. I think that there are ways that that this can be done actually, but you have to have the desire to change this. And I think unfortunately this comes as an idea of these companies are doing their own kind of marketing. They're thinking, well, it's quite prestigious to be doing American or Western business practices. Oh, we do everything like they do in the West.
In Russia, this is very wide spreaded mistake. Am I right?
believe.
Yes. People think if we are doing business, we must look like Western countries.
Yes.
So in humanitarian sphere, we understand this simple thing. But if we are talking about business, they unfortunately don't understand.
Business means we're not using the Russian terminology. Business is an imported word for the whole concept. And if you import the whole concept, you must install everything that goes further after this concept. You understand?
Absolutely. No, and look, I will say on the other hand, just so I don't sound completely like, everything should be like this, but like on the contrary, I find many things very, very frustrating and that I have to learn, right? I'm meant to integrate into Russia. And my brain just does not work like a Russian. It doesn't. Maybe my children's brains will have the opportunity
They're
to
more
work like a
flexible
Russian.
due to age, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Much more susceptible. But I find some things that just extraordinarily frustrating. I'm like, guys, please just stop killing the trees. Like, no more paper. Just let's finish with all of this contract, and everybody should have a stamp and a big printer to print out a contract for every single thing that we are exchanging. We should simplify the bureaucracy, it seems. I don't think it's necessary, but this seems to be like a legacy thing that was happening. I think there's too much paper, there's too much things to organize, as an example. I had a very clever CTO. I was very grateful to learn many things about Russian business from him to just explain so I could understand. And I said, Anton, I must understand about how Russians do business. And he said, okay, I will show you. This is how it goes. This is Russian business. Duck, jump, okay, yep, and go around, take a shortcut. No, like this. This is how we do business in Russia. And I was like, every day. Yes, every day. You should go around. You should find a way to go over or under or whatnot. You shouldn't walk in a straight line. And I was like, oh my God. That is very, very, very different.
It calls adaptability to the environment,
Adaptability, absolutely. And, if we compare this to the animal kingdom, there are many, many animals that are very, very good at doing this. I could not be one of these animals in this animal kingdom.
But at the same time, this is a cause why nobody could win in the war with Russia.
True.
Yes.
Unpredictable.
Yes.
Very unpredictable. Oh my gosh. No, I think that it's very clear to see in the case of the SMO as an example that Russia has introduced the world to modern warfare practically. We only figured this out in a video game. And now it's like completely like not even realistic. But we've now entered this entire new development of how war is done, how battles are fought, how conflicts are resolved. It's a completely new world. and Russia has adapted amazingly to this situation.
Let's talk about, if you don't mind, about American adaptability to one thing, because we would like to know more about you and your place of birth. You are from Kansas, right? And as far as we know, the Kansas is one of the states which could consider itself like a stronghold for the Republican Party, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that the Republicans, they are in power right now. Correct? And we all know that with Republicans, traditionally Russia has a very difficult relation, but with Democrats also, so it's not the case. But look, we know that there are things in the United States that hardly changes with the pace of time. It's like stability, predictable and understandable stability. How the political landscape changes currently in the US and in terms of this two-party system? Will Kansas fall like a stronghold for Republican Party? What will happen in the nearby future?
So it's very interesting that you asked me this because given the current events of the last few weeks even, this has become much clearer as to what the future is. And you can call me after the midterms in November and our presidential elections in a couple of years and tell me, look, Joseph, you were wrong, see? But this is how I see it.
We'll call you to comment, don't worry.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. We'll come back and you can replay the tape, yeah? So actually, I'm from Texas originally.
Not from Kansas. Okay.
I was living in Kansas, so you're absolutely correct to assume this.
But Texas is also a stronghold for the Republicans.
It's supposed to be, yes. Well, we also have Ted Cruz there, so what is a stronghold anymore? No, something that I think that more and more Americans are realizing every day, and I hope that more Russians learn about this as well, because they still think that we have cowboys and guns, and okay, yes, we have both of those things, but it's not a Wild West with the saloons and, just good old boys anymore. Unfortunately, we have many imports from California as an example, so Austin is completely a city that's been taken over ideologically, and in other places. So Texas is not the state even that I grew up in. But you talk about specifically about politics. There are two important concepts to remember. That, first of all, the Democrats and the Republicans, that we as kind of, I guess you would just say, good American people, regardless of what bucket you might put them in, are more and more realizing that these are really the same party that are creating a show. Americans love to be entertained more than anything else. We love entertainment. We love our bread and our games. And politics is entertainment. It's just pure entertainment for us. It's not even like we're pretending to have mature conversations anymore in our politics. You see how Donald Trump can tweet and talk and whatnot, and we're up there talking about bombing a civilization back to the Stone Age while standing right next to the Easter Bunny. Like, this is just like a Hunger Games show that we have now created. And it's just gotten more intense over the years. So that's one concept. The other concept that everybody really should understand is that we have...
Let me quote. It's something new from the internet. So
okay. Breaking.
Breaking, yeah. It's let's say it's a picture with Donald Trump in the medieval, these armed things. And there is a title. To confuse the enemy, first confuse yourself. If you have no idea what you are doing, your enemies don't either. Don't need zoo.
Don't need zoo.
The arts of war.
Oh, that's magnificent. Don't need zoo. It's just amazing, right? You don't know what's going to happen in American politics.
That's why I'm asking you the question. So what's going on in the United States?
Okay, so the other principle that you should understand is that if you look at politics in the serious light, as in what's going on really behind the scenes, you have this basically one party, this pretend binary system, which is, again, very strange for me to live in a country that does not live in a on-off switch. But we do liberal presidents, and they push really hard, going down the very liberal ideological way. And then after this term, then we have the savior. Okay, this is your Bush. This is Trump. This was Ronald Reagan. This was John F. Kennedy, right? These people that we put along the way to calm the population down. Everything is okay. We're going back to the way that we were when America was great or when America was strong. We will give you images of American revolutionaries fighting against the British. We will give you federal soldiers fighting Confederate soldiers. These sorts of imagery. This is our cycle. And you can look back in our history for the last, 30 years. It's a very short time for Russia, I understand. But for us, it's a very long time. That we keep doing this over and over and again. And this is a very effective way to manage the American population.
This is why you say that everything that we observe today is elements of the show that continues for a few decades.
Absolutely. And so really what is red and what is blue is almost irrelevant at this point. The fact of the matter is Trump was meant to be the guy that broke the system. This is how it was marketed. This is how it was advertised. I will say that I voted for Trump. And this is not, and I told you so, but I said I was voting for Trump because I just couldn't stand the idea of Hillary Clinton in the White House. I just couldn't, that's the first time I voted in my entire life. And now will be the last time that I ever voted, ironically.
But you had such experience in your life, so you can put a tick on
yes,
done.
Sixth bucket list item is finished.
I did it.
Yeah. But I voted for Trump in the first term. And in the first term, Trump really did a few things. People got some checks, people got some money, and they felt pretty good about where the economy was going. This second term, it's just like a freak show, not even just about the Iran thing, but with the cryptocurrencies and everything like this. People just taking money and just stealing money from the American public. And we're all just still clapping like we're supposed to be clapping, right? He's our guy, right? People are so invested in Trump now. Sadly, they're just so invested in him that if they give him up now, that means all their hope is gone because they put their hope in a politician instead of God. And this is what happens when you do this. People are telling me back in the States when I was getting very passionate about the situation being so bad, they said, look, Joseph, you just don't have any hope. That's why you say this person is bad. You say this person is a jokester. You say this guy is lying to you. And I said, no, my hope is in God. It's not in any one of these men. And politicians, you talk about politicians, we have a joke. We say poly from the Greek, and ticks for the noun, the bug that sticks to you when you're running through the grass. It's the many ticks, that are just sucking the blood out of you. And this is how I view American politics, and it's just a show. It's very sad.
Joseph, you take an active part in international events in Moscow. And as we know, for example, the other day, you were at the Moscow Economic Forum. Could you tell us, how did it go?
Well, I think it was very interesting. The first panel, it's a smaller economic forum, right? Not to be confused with the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. I know Russians know that, but Americans don't know that at all. This economic forum, it was there was a panel with Leonid Slutsky on it, a gentleman from, and I'm very sorry that I forget names, but there was a gentleman from the central bank, and there was also a fellow from the agricultural sector talking on the stage. And I learned many interesting things on this panel. I think it was actually, of all of the conferences and the places that I've been, and I listened to these conversations, it was one of the most interesting. And I have many questions, actually, that came out of this conversation. So there was a conversation about how the bank, for example, should be organized. Should we follow the Chinese model? Should we follow the American model? This is the current Russian bank model. And it was very curious to me just how everybody was rather divided about whether or not the bank should be nationalized or not nationalized. And I hadn't thought about several of these concepts before because I'm familiar with our own system of banking, for example. So this was a fascinating discussion. Mr. Slutsky was talking about, I believe it was this man from the central bank talking about how we should not tax labor, but we should only tax consumption. I don't know. This sounds like I hear something about labor versus consumption, and I immediately think communist. I'm like, is this communist? Is it not communist? But I'm learning that there are more nuances to your politics that, again, I'm learning about. So it was very engaging. Also about the yield with regards to the agriculture in Russia right now, and comparing about how we need to increase the agricultural production in Russia versus in Europe. And this brought me to the question of the current push right now to bring European farmers, South African farmers. For example, Mr. Musk is here in Moscow discussing these exact points about the Boers in Africa, presenting them as opportunities in Russia for agriculture. And now that became a little bit clearer to me why this is such an important push. So there were many different concepts that were there, but I think the really most exciting thing that I did there was to meet Mr. George Galloway, who's, of course, now exiled here in Moscow and now running his show here from Russia. And I think that he is not the first, and he will not be the last of people bringing their shows to Russia to be able to say what they really think from the other side of the curtain, so to speak.
But we know that you also have your own show. You're on the podcast.
Yes.
So very popular podcast.
Well, you're very, very kind to say so.
Yeah. Could you please tell us more about the original initial idea and why you decided to start it?
Fantastic. So my partner is Eddie Gonzalez. He is known as Moscow Photographer. He had his channel, Moscow Photographer, and I had my channel, which was Home in Russia. And we finally met, we ended up meeting at several these groups, I guess you would say, for people doing like media stuff and trying to really understand what kind of new content that we could make. And we decided to finally actually meet each other in person. And we said, this is really hard doing this by yourself. So we should work together and have the power of two. And in fact, the power of two is in media it's really incredible. Like yourselves, I'm sure that you can reach out much more easily to people and have good teamwork and conversation and be able to build a more dynamic show. So we decided to start this show. We called it Russia Up Close. And the aim of this conversation, much like how you introduced your show to me for the first time, that we want to build these bridges. And we wanted to do this in a particular way, leveraging technology to basically say, look, we will interview you if you're speaking English, or we will interview you if you're speaking Russian, like you are now doing with me in my own tongue. But we will use AI technology and lip sync technology to actually hear this person speaking the opposite language in their own voice. And we had some very good success with that. And people really enjoyed this idea of having this conversation that Russians and Americans or Westerners, English-speaking Westerners, could actually watch the same podcast together. And this is quite fun to actually watch these shows go out live. Or presented live, I guess you would say, and to see Russian and English in the chats at the same time, and people trying to learn how to translate and respond to Russians and whatnot. But we need our own people to have the conversation. We need to bring this out of the political area and bring it into the personal level. I think one thing that shocked me more than anything about moving to Russia was that I really thought when I came to visit that people were going to shout at me on the street if they heard that I was speaking in English, that I would get some flack because I think, many Americans are learning and Russians know that the American government is behind these current conflict on the opposite side. And I thought that Russians would blame me for that. And Americans, this is how we think. This is how we've been trained to think. Russia government, Russian people, it's all one box and we should treat them all as our enemy. But I come here and people, why would we be upset with you? Are you the American government? No, we just don't like your government. We love Americans. And I was like, wow, I guess we can be friends then.
Yeah, because we can divide those who are in power and the ordinary people.
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, as you as Russians and dealing with all this Russophobia, etc., y'all are very well experienced. You know exactly what I'm talking about when people treat the entire country collectively as the same thing.
Joseph, in your podcast, you explain what Russia is to people in the United States and Europe. You show them how we live here in Russia. In fact, you break stereotypes about Russians, about our country. We are very grateful for that. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Unfortunately, not everyone in the West, as you said, likes what you do. How you ever come under criticism for your work?
Absolutely, I have. And sadly, by people that I considered to be very good friends. And it's just very unfortunate, but I always have to remind myself that I was trained in the same way to think this about Russia. And so I shouldn't blame them too harshly because it doesn't seem that Russians themselves blame the Americans too harshly for thinking the same thing that they are trained to think. But yeah, people have told me that I was a coward. People have called me a traitor. People have sent me disgusting messages. People have sent me messages about my children, how Russians are going to rape my little girls. And I mean, just the horrible, most disgusting things. We will find you, you know, these kinds of things, particularly about my own children. It's a really, really horrible thing. And then sadly, this is what the internet has become, that people, when they don't have a face and they don't have a reputation to put out there, but they can poke at somebody who has said, I'm an open book, ask me any questions. I will video Russia. I will show you what I see with my own two eyes. I will show you the people that I've grown to love. Everybody knows who I am, and I put myself out there in this way. And even my own children, which some people are not even willing to do this. But I think that somebody and people need to do this more often to show the family and how family is accepted, respected, encouraged in this country. And it's very warming to me. And this is the only thing that I really feel like I can do to give back to this country and these people that have welcomed me with their arms. So with as much of this hatred that has been showed in this way, I can certainly tell you that I received much more love from the Russians than the hatred that I have received from the West. And this is a wonderful balance that I am truly grateful with. And it makes me feel closer to Russian people for this because they are friends that I can rely on.
Thanks God.
Joseph, you've just touched very interesting and I would say very valuable ground, because unfortunately our program is coming to an end. But before we conclude, I wanted to ask you the second most important question after the first one, why Russia? And you just touched the ground. What are the commonalities? What do we have in common? I mean, you Americans and we Russians. It's something that should be connecting us, not those people who are sending, all these bad things because they do not simply understand or they are poor in their mindsets. But I mean, in general, between people, you live there, you grew up there, now you're living here in Russia. There must be something that we have in common.
Certainly. And I will always say this, in my shows, I leverage a lot of criticism at America. And unfortunately, Americans take it very personally to mean all of you, which, again, Russians don't look at it. When they say American and they're saying something critical, generally speaking, it's about the government, not the people. But I forget this because I've lived here now for a long period of time. And I'm thinking more like from Russian terms back towards Americans. And so I've been now trying to say more often the U.S. federal government, because I want people to know back in the States that I still have many good friends there. I believe that there are really good, wholesome people still in America. And I think that that is absolutely the truth here in Russia. I think one of the biggest commonalities that we have is, I call it a big country mindset. This idea that we can, you're in Nizhny Novgorod, we're just going to go. We're just going to go drive and we're going to go see you in Nizhny Novgorod, right? 6 hours away or, by car maybe from Moscow, right? We can do this in America. This is a very difficult thing for maybe the Europeans, for example, which if the grocery store is 15 minutes away, well, we might
That's
have to do without.
1 hour. Oh no, it's very, very far.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that is something that we can bond over, to being kind of the bigger countries. Of course, Russia is, 2.5 times the size of the United States, but at least we have this idea of no boundaries, no limits to traveling in our own countries.
I should say that if we're talking about the territory, the habitable regions of Russia are about the same size as United States, because we have far north, which is not very populated, and it's difficult.
Sure.
And we're talking about the land we can go there.
Yeah, it's true.
You cannot go to nowhere, so
Not exactly.
Not exactly. There should be something.
Mostly, there should be
cities, villages. I don't know. At least seaside.
The population density, of course, is much higher in the United States to the actual land. And there's many interesting things to see in both. But I think that is something that, if this rift between Russia and America ever gets healed, I think that in many ways that Americans can more easily appreciate who Russians are. Certainly, there are big differences between our cultures. We can certainly talk about a lot more things that divide us, but on these things that unite us, I think that Russians have big hearts. I think that there are good Americans that still exist that have very big hearts. I know several of them. I think, the difficulty, I think, in comparing Americans with Russians is that we are, for lack of a better term, a thought experiment. We're more of a philosophy. We're more of a nation. You're more of a country. You don't have you have, this Sobornost concept that we don't. That's not our thing. Our thing is about the individuality. And I will tell you, as much as I can admire you, it's extraordinarily frustrating to me to not be able, I must do this thing by myself. And I have Russian friends, they're like, you had a problem and you didn't call me. What's wrong with you? They're really legitimately angry. And I'm like, whoa, relax. Don't be offended by that. They're like, no, you betrayed our friendship. You were in desperate need and you didn't call me. An American would be like, your problems are your problems. Don't call me about your problems. Oh, you need to move house? I'm going on vacation next week. I won't be here. I'm sorry. But, there's a difference in this mentality. So it is a little bit difficult for me to describe the things that are common. But one thing that I will say is that Americans do appreciate genuine hospitality. And I think that Russians offer genuine hospitality. And this is something that I will always be grateful for and remember and encourage other people to come and see for themselves.
A perfect conclusion for our program.
Yes, Joseph, thank you very, very much for this
pleasure.
very interesting conversation. We are very glad to meet you. And we hope that it is the beginning of our big friendship.
Дай Бог.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to see you.
Likewise. Спасибо.
Zvezda Holding presents Dynamic Spectrum Talks now.